My brain says this, try this.
The St. Louis Cardinals don't know what an infield fly is, and I guarantee they know what an infield fly is.
And he struggled mightily, and I think that becomes an issue because now he's so criticized.
Talking
Overfluff.
over fluff. Too much fluff.
I think so.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Welcome, everybody, to the spring-summer edition of the Hitting Zone podcast. That is where we bring up baseball topics. We discuss them, and then, of course, we knock them out of the park because that's something I was good at. And big shout-out Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Their summer series is going on. Summer tournaments are going on. A lot has been booked up, so make sure that you go over there. If you're searching for a tournament because of rain or something happened, make sure you go to game7baseball.com. Check out some of their events. The World Series is coming up here, actually my birthday weekend, and we'll be playing in the Game 7 World Series with my 9U baseball team, so that should be fun. Prime Sports Midwest, 2 locations. You have your one in the Mother, which is down in Fenton on Ocello Drive. Then you have the one out there in Chesterfield. And, of course, I can't say enough about the Hitting Zone. That's what we bring in, some of these athletes' memberships. So make sure that you go over there, you check them out. But first, you have to go to the YBM Club because you have a nice little 20% discount. If you sign up to be a member of the YBM Club, you can get 20% off, or $20 off, of the membership into the Hitting Zone. So YBM Club, I think it's you'll find it on Youth Baseball Midwest website. Then you can navigate your code, and then you can go to the Hitting Zone's website and figure it out. I'm excited about today's conversation. We haven't done podcasts in a while. Once high school baseball season starts, we kind of shut down the podcast because we work together, getting on high school games, broadcasting high school games. And if you haven't been checking them out, make sure you go to YouTube and find those games because there's been some great games. There's some new faces out there in district play or sectionals right now that we haven't seen yet. Great baseball being played this week or last week into this week. So, make sure that you go see this. But this one got me excited because I met this gentleman on the screen that you can see for random text. I saw one of his posts that really got me excited about kind of what are we doing, what are we paying for in the game of baseball. And so I started just going through his social media, and I really loved it because the message is clear. I want to make sure that everybody knows this. We're not going in and we're not bashing anybody. This is in opinions. This is thought out very well. And we're going to start that conversation today. And so without further ado, if I could have you just introduce yourself to our fans here in St. Louis.
All right. Well, what's up, St. Louis? Whenever I say St. Louis, I have get a little pit in my stomach because I'm in Texas. I'm a Rangers fan, and it makes me think back to how close we were to winning our first World Series. Shout out to Nelson Cruz because he definitely helped you guys. I'm Bobby Miner. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I have been a coach for over 35 years. I played Division I baseball before getting hurt. I played in Mexico. I've coached every level of select and travel baseball there is, all the way up through high school. Ran an event in the Dominican Republic for 4 years with the son of an MLB Hall of Famer. Ran my own organization. And I think most importantly, I went through this whole process with my youngest son, Julian, who's in his 3rd year playing baseball in college. And I post daily content just trying to help educate and inform parents so they know, what to expect at every step of the way, what questions to ask, and then ultimately make the best decisions for their son when it matters most. So that's me.
Are you still invested in coaching, or are you kind of retired from the game?
No. So great question. No, I'm not coaching anybody this spring. I did coached a team last spring and summer. My son this year, he played in California. And so with travel, over there to watch him play and stuff, I just didn't want to commit to coaching a team knowing that I wasn't going to be here, but I will be coaching again this fall.
I think, are you going to coach in the fall and then spring, summer again, or are you just going to do fall?
Absolutely.
I got you.
No. I'm going to start coaching again in the fall and coach all the way through.
I got you. And I think people forget, I you brought up a very good point, because I coached college ball and my daughter played college at the same time I was coaching at obviously a different university. And the things that coaches sacrifice, it's, please understand what the what it takes to coach in this process, and the things that we give up. I mean, there was a quote that was made the other day. I forget what the movie I was watching. I think it was Mario Galaxy, something we were watching it with a bunch of kids over the weekend. And Bowser was saying something to his kids about, when I was there, you were great. When I was around, it's like so much we miss in our athletes. So big shout out to you. 35 years in this business is got to be tough. I'm in about year 25. I'm 46 years old and started right out of college. So um, I never had the luxury of playing professional or getting paid, but I did play baseball until I was 40 in men's league. So I enjoy doing that, plus coaching while trying to do all that other stuff going on. But I want to get into today's conversation just to kind of talk about where we're at as far as the players go, the development, some of the changes that you've experienced over 35 years. I don't necessarily want to get into some of the topics that I started following you for. I want to save that maybe for a different show, a different day, because I think that deserves its own conversation. The conversations about, PG, PBR, all the event holders, the big events,
Yeah.
And even down to your local events. And so, I'm not going to ask your age, but growing up for me, baseball, football was a big priority for us. In other sports, basketball, if you wrestled, maybe you just hit the gym in the wintertime, very different than, I mean, I had Nintendo and Atari, but I didn't have cell phones. I didn't even have call waiting, if you can remember what call waiting was, or Star 69 back then. But today's kids have a different competition. They deal with the social media, the gaming aspect. The entertainment's just endless for these kids. And do you think the game overall has evolved with the kids, or do you think it may be lacking with kind of where the kids are at today with all the features that they have available to them?
I think so. That's a great question. And I think that for as much talent, like I see kids, 12-year-olds doing things that I don't think I ever saw a 12-year-old do when I was 12. So from a talent perspective, it's just different. And a lot of it has to do with early specialization and things like that. And I mean, mom and dad, you're going to strength and conditioning 3 times a week. You're with your hitting instructor, and you're doing all these things that we didn't do. We just went and played baseball, went out to, local playground or vacant lot and just played pickup games, just like Sandlot, like literally. And I'm not that old. I'm not as old as the Sandlot, but, it's just like that. But for all of the talent, I also think that there is a lack of baseball IQ, if you will, with a lot of players. And I think that's attributed to, if you think about it again, we learned how to play on our own for the most part, no adult intervention, supervision, direction, or anything. We're out there just pretending to be our favorite MLB players at the time and playing for hours and hours and hours till it got dark. And today these kids start playing, at T-ball, and you got 8 coaches on the team, and you got parents lined up along the fence. And anytime the ball's put in play, you got a million people screaming at these kids what to do, and they never learn how to think for themselves. And that's why when they're older, anytime something happens, where's the first place a lot of them look? To the stands. They want to see what mom or dad, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they upset? But so it's definitely changed, and I don't necessarily think that it's evolved. It's evolved. And again, there's a lot of distractions, like you talked about. Like, we weren't staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning playing Minecraft or Call of Duty or whatever. It just didn't have. Matter of fact, when I was a kid, you didn't even have 24-hour TV channels. Channel went off at some point, and you just saw the static. So it was just a different, definitely a different era. And it's changed. Not everything that's happening today is bad, but a lot of it, I think, it's not good. And that's why at the end of the day, less than 10% of the kids playing are going to go on to play in college.
I mean, you could even expand in that into the high school side because we're seeing such a big drop off from, grade school, middle school into high school. You start to see a decline in athletes. We might have thousands of athletes at the grade school, middle school, and all of a sudden we have hundreds. And there's
Yeah.
just this massive drop off. And you brought up a point there, just kind of talking about the differences of going down and playing the game. I'm a big guy. I've always been a big kid. And I used to get picked last, and it drove me crazy to be picked last because I always thought I was better than some of the guys. And so my mom and dad weren't there to guide me through that. Matter of fact, if I said I was better than somebody, I might have caught a jab to the jaw or the nose to keep my mouth shut and said, "No, you're not, big boy. Take your turn." And I wanted to be a better basketball player. So I had to learn how
Mhm.
to shoot. So I had to shoot every day. I wanted to be a better baseball player. I wanted to throw it further. So I had to play toss every day. I played tennis. I played ping pong just because of the fact that I wanted to be something better. I don't see that anymore. I know that instruction's there and I know that we're talented, right? Because I don't think we've seen a more talented group because of the things
Mhm.
that we have. However, there's not that drive because you're coached up on every little thing in this game. And you talked about baseball IQ. Do you think that that's maybe a bigger problem than we think as parents and coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and it's for like again. I'm gonna go back just kind of compare then to now. Like I remember, well, first of all, like we didn't have MLB Network and all that. We didn't have access to all of these games. But like anytime there's a game on TV, whether it was the Saturday game of the week or whatever, like I'm watching. Like I was consumed with it, watching the games, listening to games on the radio. You know, um, just yeah, and like now, like I don't know, like dude, my son, he graduated in 2023. There's a kid that played on one of our teams from 9U all the way up to 13U. They played high school ball together, and my son was talking about baseball players to him, and I want to say he didn't know who Chipper Jones was. He didn't know who Ken Griffey Jr. was, and so now maybe that might be an outlier, but the point, like, you don't have kids sitting down watching games, dissecting games, looking at when MLB players make mistakes, when they do something, exceptional, and you just don't have that. And I think that definitely affects this generation. Everybody's about throwing the ball hard, hitting the ball hard, and being all swagged out and everything for social media.
Yeah, I had this conversation and I thought I did it. I've done this twice with my group. I did veteran players, Hall of Famers. I made sure it was Hall of Famers. I'm talking the top echelon of Hall of Famers, not the Hall of Very Good that got in. And then I
Yeah.
talked about current players. And there's people that don't know who Jacob Mizorowski is. Everybody
Yeah.
knows who Paul Skeens is, but Jacob Mizorowski's I mean, what
Mhm.
he did to the Cardinals yesterday was just insane. Nobody understands what the Braves are doing right now. And I like what you said there about the conversations that are being had on TV when they do something wrong. It's talked about on TV. Then they replay it on TV. So then it's like a game rep, right? It's an IQ thing. And you're right. It's just highlights all the time. And do you think that like once the game starts to become more serious, which I use the 14U age group as kind of when the game changes, that 60-90 kind of thing. Do you think that that's part of the reason why there's such a massive drop off from middle school baseball into the high school baseball? Because once you get to high school, you actually have to know how to play the game instead of just kind of being talented because you're a bigger kid.
Yeah, there's to me a drop off for multiple reasons. So like let's start with first of all, a lot of times when the kids are younger, it's the parents, driving everything. Like the parents want it more than the kid. And then, finally when they get to high school and everything, you see that separation. You see the separation like the early bloomers. Again, the really big 12-year-old swinging a hype fire playing on a 200-foot field. And now all of a sudden they're playing 60-90. They're having to swing a BB core and it's a totally different game. And those players and I'm not saying every early bloomer is lazy by any means, but you see some that put in the work, but a lot of them, they get in their head and they just think that they're better than everybody and they're not putting in the work that the smaller undersized grinder is. And then when he hits puberty and they catch up, he's head and shoulders above this kid. Once you get into high school also, it's not pay to play. And I know in some areas you do pay for high school baseball, A lot of areas you don't, most areas you don't. And so when I say it's not pay to play, meaning that when they're younger, you're paying 2 or 3 grand a year. Everybody plays, maybe not equally, but everybody plays. When you get to high school, dude, you're going to see kids that literally may not touch the field, and it's just a totally different animal. And then you have all the other distractions that once they reach their teenage years, like cell phones, girls, cars, jobs, drugs, alcohol. I mean, it's all real. There's a lot of things that I think that 14U year is probably, to me, maybe the biggest year in all of this, and why you see so many players disappear.
Yeah, in our area, I'm in St. Charles County, actually, which is just out about 35 minutes west of the airport. In our conference, Gateway Athletic Conference, GACs, we have kids in our class 6, which is our biggest 6. We have kids that get cut that play college baseball, that are committed going into
Oh
their
yeah,
senior years because they might not have played their junior year at all, or got cut their junior year. Then they got cut their senior year and still gonna find a place to play college baseball, because you can't have 3 second basemen in there that all have college experience. So there's intangibles that are happening,
yeah.
your character, those kind of flaws and stuff like that. And you talk about these drop offs and stuff like that. And I think these declines, are we as like influencers, and I'm not talking about social media influencers, I'm talking parents, the coaches, the organizers of these programs. Are we doing a good job when they're young to remind them that says, hey, I know that your kid's really good at 12 years old. He is a foot and a half taller than one of his teammates. And yeah, I know he's got 13 home runs this year, but you can't stop working. I don't think we do that enough, because all we do is highlight his social media post and say, look at what my kid did. Yahoo. And he gets to high school and he's got no work ethic. He has no baseball IQ. And all of a sudden, that little scrappy kid that is now only 3 inches smaller than him now has a skill set that's better, because he had to find a way at his smaller size to be just as competitive. So do you think like we're doing a good enough job of telling these families like, hey, baseball is actually really difficult? I know this is what you're doing on your social media. This is why I wanted you on the show. I know you're trying to do this. I know that's what we're trying to do here at YBM. And so what tough conversations do we need to be having with these parents, and are we doing even enough?
So okay, there's a lot there. So
Yeah,
here's the thing.
sorry.
Like, no, 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 no. But here's the reality, though. Like, it's you have a lot of parents that you don't know what you don't know. Okay, and so a lot of parents that didn't play baseball, or played baseball, didn't play baseball at a high level, haven't been in the game for a lot of years, and so they just don't know, and so they're just kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses and kind of following the crowd and doing what everybody else is doing, and so to your question, yes or no? No, I don't think we're doing a good job. And when I say, like, nothing that I say am I saying applies to 100% of the people, 100, everywhere. Like, they're all, so I'm kind of speaking to the 80% in the middle. I don't think we're doing a good job, because what happens a lot too, and dude, like, I would, now when my son was 12, he was smallest one on the team. So he wasn't hitting 13 bombs, but like, I would be happy for that. I would post that on social media too, but you got to have the conversations with him to help prepare him for what is coming. But if you've never been there, you don't have that experience, then you don't know what's coming. You're so focused in the moment, you think that you have the next Bryce Harper, when all you really have is a decent baseball player that's just bigger than everybody. But the other part of this too, we create a lot of spoiled, entitled brats, because your son's bigger at 12. He's a dude. You think he's something special. And you start kissing his butt. You're carrying his bag from the car. You're going to the dugout, checking on him, making sure he has a juice box and all that. And we just create a bunch of, like babies that don't know how to take care of themselves, like what you're talking about, you know. And so, I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did, but
You did. You like I
got
said,
me on
there's a
the
lot.
juice. You got me on the juice box thing, man. I was like, I heard that and I was like, man, so one of my things, I chose to go back to, I've been coaching high school a long time. So coach college, went back to high school. I went to college first to coach, then to high school, which is kind of the backwards route, but I got lucky to
Yeah.
get into college. Somebody needed a volunteer coach and I raised my hand and kind of earned my stripes and worked my way into a paid position. And then I was done with traveling. COVID hit, and the political stuff happened there, and I stopped coaching because of some of the requirements. Went to high school, and um, the thing that when I got there, it's like, man, we're not prepared to play high school ball. So after I graduated this past class, I had kids go on and play college ball, and half the kids did, and they chose to go to tech school, different things, and that's all
Yeah.
fun. Um, I wanted to start over at 9U. I wanted to rebuild the culture. I wanted to rebuild the IQ. I wanted to do all these skills things, and I'm learning that I can't always coach the skill set. Playing catch is very important to me. I think that's the most
Yeah.
important thing we have to do at 9. But these kids still need to learn game situations, and I took it for granted thinking we needed to learn how to do footwork at 9. So things I'm learning. But I did this back over because I felt like we've been lying to our kids this whole time. And I don't think that we're giving them enough hard truths. And do you feel like that, that's why you created this page, is to kind of give these hard truths to people? And so what kind of feedback have you gotten from folks? I imagine it's about like this, but do you like, what do people say to you when you tell them these kinds of things? Like, hey
It,
man,
it what
ball's hard.
it depends. It depends what the topic is. Like when I know I did a video on. To me, there's no such thing as a 9U elite player. 9U elite teams. That's all marketing and branding. That's a money grab. And people push back because everybody wants to think that your kid is special, but there is no 9U, 10U, 11U. I'll even say 12U, but 12U is when you can start seeing separation. But certainly 11U and under, to me, there's no such thing as an elite athlete. Again, you might have that 1% outlier, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, by and large, it's just kids that are more coordinated. They're bigger, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And so, um, but the feedback that I get, I'm gonna name drop, but I had an MLB Hall of Famer follow me and send me a message. Um, Probably 2 weeks ago, telling me that he loves everything that I'm talking about, that I'm spot on. So parents don't want to. Dude, that's nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to think, and I get it. Like I think my son is special. That we all want to think that we're different. We're different, but the numbers don't lie. 75% of players will quit by the age of 14. Less than 10% will go on to play beyond high school. 2% will play at the Division 1 level. You know what I mean? So that's not my opinion. Those are the numbers. And so there's a whole lot going on along the way, and parents chasing a dream that. And I'm not saying I'm not saying don't don't believe in your son, don't encourage your son. That's not what I'm saying at all. But so many parents get so caught up in all the craziness from an early age that they're missing out on just enjoying the journey with their son, and they make it a freaking job when it's not a job. Just enjoy it, help support your son, and have just enjoy the experience. And then if he does play after high school, that's a bonus.
Do you think that parents have become customers for these organizations instead?
1000%. Um, I'm just being like, dude, when I was coaching, so again, the organization that I started in Fort Worth, it was called the Fort Worth Lobos. So when we were a 12U major team, um, we charged $800 for the entire spring and summer season. And $800 got you dedicated field practice, indoor practice, 3 jerseys, 2 caps, 8 tournaments in a World Series, and a batting helmet. All of that for $800 total. And so when I see people paying $4,200 for 10U baseball, come on now. Does it cost $4,200 for, you know what I mean, per person? That's like almost 50 grand, 50 grand, let's say, for a 10U baseball team to, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And I'm not anti-capitalism. Me and my wife both are small business owners. But I'm also, I'm anti people preying on the hopes and dreams, aspirations and fears of parents that just don't know any better.
And ultimately, I think the kids get impacted by that, because now the conversations in the vehicles are, I'm paying for this, I need you to do this, which is a conversation you talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a club owner too. I'm no longer a club owner. I'm getting out of club baseball because of these things, because I'm trying to keep things cheaper, and I'm volunteering my time. There's not a single reason why I need to be a paid coach on a 9U team. That doesn't make sense to me. I am trying to give back because I don't, it's $1,500 to play fall, spring, and summer for me, and I can't
Perfect.
stand that. I can't stand that though, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's too high. And I want to play for that $800 to $1,000. I'm not talking sponsorship money invested too.
Yeah.
I can't believe how much it costs. But then I go back and look at this. We've all asked for turf. We're tired of rain. Turf has money, it costs money, right?
Yeah.
We've asked for
Mhm.
better umpires. We're asking for things to have better things, but we want this low ticket thing and it's not going to work. And so the cost of doing business is just so high that I feel like that you are correct in saying like we're just preying on people at the end of the day saying that you can have all of this. So it started to become about the name on the front of the chest. And I'm like, well, what happened to the one on the back? Like, where does the return on the investment and the time? That's where I think you should be spending your money is on your athlete, whether that is, getting a really nice glove instead of the cheapest version that you can find of a Wilson Rawlings or whatever brand. Go get the tool because the tool is what you need to have here. And then you feel confident about that. Stop with I seen it. This is no pun to A1000 or 500 or whatever the cheap Wilson glove is. I bet
Mhm.
you $900 worth of bats. It probably was more than that because he had three slick bats in there, three pairs of batting gloves, two sliding mitts. Some of them had little fuzzy things on them. And I thought to myself, his glove, he can't even, it goes like this, is a pancake, right? And I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That you call your kid a second baseman, a shortstop, but he has a glove that's, he can't even catch a baseball because it falls out. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I just feel like we're selling the wrong bill of goods to these folks. And that's why I asked the question is, do you think they become customers instead of focused on this player development side? Because the guys who really want to be a coach don't have the best coaches, our best players, because they're not selling them families, something that's unrealistic. And that's where that question, kind of came from. And I feel like we're selling them. I love the name Chasing Baseball Dreams. And that's what I feel like we're trying to sell them as a customer is the dream, like you had
Mhm.
said. How do we get away from that and still be able to earn the living that these folks want to be? Because as a business owner, I own a batting cage facility and I
Yeah.
love to train. How can, other than just being honest with everybody, what is a way that we can start by just educating some of these parents and saying, hey, give me one tip that we can vest a club. That's the question I'll ask. Give me one tip to vest because I'm going to give you a lot there. And I want to keep it simple.
Yeah. One question for a club
Yeah, for a
to
parent
get.
to vet a club, like
Well,
what's the one thing
oh,
you
oh,
would want
oh,
to?
oh, 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 man. To me, I have a travel baseball vetting guide. I'm not trying to pitch it or anything. 21 questions to ask. To me, one question to ask: what is my total all in cost for this season? Not just the organization fees, because they'll tell you, hey, it's only $2,500, and you think, okay, I can do that. But then you have the mandatory $300 uniform package. You have, we're going out of town 4 times, so you have to, do the state of play hotels. You're gonna have to, gas or plane tickets or what. So, like, I think that's probably, if I were to say one question, that would be it. What's my total all in cost? Everything. Are there any mandatory trainings or camps that I have to do? Are there any facility usage fees? All of those things.
Because
And
that
then,
jumps
yeah,
go,
go ahead.
that jumps
No,
from a
no, no.
$2,500 cost to a $7,000-8,000 cost, especially if you're traveling and things like that. So
Mhm.
the all in cost, and I think it needs to be clear what you said there. It's not just the stuff that you do inside with the club or the trainers. It's all of it. The uniform specials, do I have to buy my own pants for the fall? Do I have to buy, because some of that stuff's not included, like you said. But again, the travel, like if you're traveling 4 times, you're spending a minimum of $1,000 a weekend. So we're in the $8,000 to $10,000 price tag for a 10 to 12U team. And to me, I ask how worth it. How much is, oh, wow, that's English can be hard sometimes, but to me, that's not worth the investment. I know it's fun. I know that, you at 12 years old or whatever, you get to go to Cooperstown. I think that's an event in itself that you
Yeah.
want to make happen. But like, why do I just struggle with these numbers, man. I really do. And I don't think we talk about them enough. And why are we putting ourselves in debt to play this game that should be so simple?
Well, if
I
you
love
want to
that
think
question.
about this, like Cooperstown, great experience for kids. Going to Destin for a U Trip World Series. You know what I mean? Like, Like that's to me kind of like should be the culmination of you played, your season, and then we're going to go on this one trip, and it's kind of a playcation, if you will. I think that's great. But if you think about it, let's take it even deeper. Okay. So they already say 50%, this is going to be a family show now. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. What do they say is the number one contributor to divorce? Money issues. So think about, like, dude, I know there's a lot of very well off families that all their travel and everything is just a tax write off. It's not a big deal. They can drop, 15, 20 grand on little Jimmy and it's nothing. But there are a lot of families out there that are, blue collar, hardworking families that don't have that kind of money, and they sacrifice everything for their kid. And that's where I really have the issues. You know what I mean? Like, and so think about it. Like how many marriages probably ended in divorce because of money and all the strain that all of this puts on their family. So to me, it's even bigger than just you're wasting money on stuff that's not going to matter. Like, it's like, be smart about what you're doing. And I also understand not every area has multiple options. Like, I live in Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, if my son was young, University Little League is 10 minutes from my house. Great Little League if you want to play Little League. You have Southeast Arlington Little League, all these little leagues for rec ball that are there. We have a million and one travel organizations. We have multiple tournament options here. So like Dallas Fort Worth, Houston, you could literally never have to leave your area and still play some of the best competition. But everybody thinks it's about, traveling from California to Georgia just to play another team from California. It's crazy.
This is I'm gonna get sidetracked here. We're making good time, so I feel like I can get sidetracked because I want to talk about now the demographics of things. And when I grew up playing, some of my favorite athletes were black athletes, the King Griffey Juniors of the world. Microphone. Sorry, you got to get close to the King Griffey Juniors, the Kevin Mitchells, the Eric Davises, George Foster. There's some of those types of
So
players.
you're a Reds fan. You're a Reds fan growing up.
No, I'm a Cardinals fan, so I got to talk about the
Okay,
80s.
so
But
you mentioned
everybody,
all these Reds.
well,
George Foster, Eric Davis.
that's because at the time of growing up, I felt like that was where I was kind of influenced with Joe Morgan and kind of that start of just being a baseball
Yeah.
fan and being a catcher. I obviously had Johnny Bench here or in Cincy, but I'm a Cardinals fan. The early '90s was tough, but Chris Sabo, man, I go back to the Cincinnati Reds, the pitching staff that closed ball games, but Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, and Ozzie Smith. We had athletes. We had Pedro Guerrero here. We had Terry Pendleton, and Major League Baseball, I think, was right around that time was about 18% of African American athletes, and right now it's I think it's less than 5% right now of black athletes in baseball. The last time I looked, it was pretty low, and I always wondered, why is that? And we have taken the ability to play baseball away from communities. And I thought that was a good point you brought up, was the cost of playing this game in America. You go down to Latin countries and they play with, they make gloves out of cardboard, and they're doing things that they're playing for they're practicing 9 months out of the year, playing for 3 months out of the year. They're playing 30 games, not 60 games. All they do is work with anything that they have around. It's tires. I understand that we have much better opportunities here, but we're taking baseball away from communities. I grew up, I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't have all this money, blue collar, right? I could not play in today's game. I absolutely could not play in today's game unless somebody sponsored me to do that. I would have picked up a basketball. I would have thrown a football because I wouldn't have needed a lot of money to buy a football or a basketball. And I feel like we're missing out on athletes because baseball is so expensive. Do you find that being a problem where you're at as well? Because Little League rec baseball here is no good. I mean, it's nobody wants to play it. And I make a play off of the MAGA stuff, and I do make rec great again because I think rec baseball, there's a lot of players that still need to be there playing and learning the game of baseball. And so do you find that as an issue for you?
Yeah. Again, there's a lot there. So I'm going to say something. You mentioned Ozzie Smith. So I don't know if you can see. I'm trying to see. Oh, you can see. So that was my son's first college jersey. Number one. The reason wears number one, wore number one. This year he's number 8, and I wore number 1 was because of Ozzie Smith and Gary Templeton, who got traded for each other. Padres, those are a couple of my favorite players back then. Okay, so I want to address two things, and I'm gonna go kind of in reverse order because you mentioned Latin American countries. So I mean, my father-in-law's from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. I ran an event for 4 years in San Pedro with one of Orlando Cepeda's sons, and what you said about the Latin countries is absolutely true. But what people don't realize is it's also big business down there. So, like, let's say you have the 7-year-old kid that starts off, hitting bottle caps with a broomstick. When he's 10, if he shows any signs of being talented, you have private academy owners who go to those parents and say, "Hey, I'll give you $5,000. Let your son come and live at my academy. I'm going to train him." So that way, when he signs, to prepare him to be signed as an international free agent when he's 16. If and when that kid signs, the academy owner gets 40%. So it's also an investment. It's big business. And here, just some basic math. A few years ago, I was there and I was talking to Jose Cano, Robinson's dad, at their academy. And they have a smaller academy where they train. But like that year, he had 4 players sign for $4.4 million. So what's 40% of $4.4 million? You know what I mean? So like it's big business down there too. It just looks different. It's packaged different. And a big reason why they train, I think a lot of those players have very low baseball IQs, especially when they're younger, just based on teams that we played against, because they spend how do pitchers get signed, throw hard, how do hitters get signed, hit the ball hard. And so they spend all this time training on those metrics so they can sign, and then, they learn how to play after. Okay, back to your other question. Especially when you mentioned a bunch of black athletes that you were favorites growing up. So I actually played baseball at an HBCU, which is a historically black college or university. So I was back in the '80s. I played at Prairie View A&M. Coach Tank, and the field is named after him now. So I've kind of grown up in that in inner city environment and all that. I think the cost has definitely been a factor. And I don't know if you're familiar with Andrew McCutcheon's story of how he lived with his travel ball coach, I think when he was 15, to have these opportunities. You don't hear a lot about that, but this is my opinion. I think a lot of it has to do with, like, my sons love baseball because I love baseball. And that's what I introduced them to and everything. And so if you grow up in a household, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, if your dad's a tennis player or your dad loves tennis, chances are you're probably going to play tennis. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that everybody that loves baseball, that their parents loved it or whatever, but I think that's a big factor. And then again, to be able to fully keep up, you do have to be able to have money to do things, whether it's, some sort of private instruction, the travel, the cost and things like that. Unless you have somebody like McCutcheon's coach who just said, "I see something special in this kid. He's going to live with me and I'm going to take care of him." You don't see that a lot, but I think it's twofold. I think it's the cost. And then I also think a lot of, in the household where you live, do people love baseball? Because if they don't love baseball, you're probably not going to love baseball.
Yeah, I haven't really discussed the kind of the product of your environment. And I never really thought about that piece. I always just thought about the cost of it. Because I grew up in a melting pot area, I never looked at it in being different, and now as an instructor owner, I want to know where all my athletes are. And I don't care about certain things. And it's like, I never really thought about the reason why my kids love baseball is because I loved baseball. I never really thought about it like that. So that's a very good point. And I love the knowledge drop there. I didn't see that on one of your videos. You might need to do that on Latin baseball, because I didn't realize how much that, like, some of these programs are actually paying families to have their kids, and then the return on that's that 40%. I think that's an interesting fact about business. I did not know that. I just because again, it goes back now to the social media, which is kind of what I'm going to end here in the social media question. It's like, what do we really need to be posting, or types of posts do we need to be seeing for these kids? I think social media has such a big impact on today's game because it's so highlight driven, right? So they only see all the cool things. What should we be posting as parents? Should we be posting the struggles?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the age of your son. Like I did a video on a post on this a week or two ago where I said nobody posts an ugly selfie. Um, and so, and what I mean by that is you don't see like, okay, like my wife, like I've been with my wife and we've taken picture, the picture that I post is like our sixth take of it because the five before that, my eyes are closed, her hair ponytail's on the wrong side. You know what I mean? But like, we're not posting all of that. So it's like I get it. Be a proud parent. You know what I mean? Like, I post all of that. Like when the kids are younger, I mean, just yeah, post the things that you're proud of. But if you're a parent of another player, you got to remember that you're seeing, little Jimmy's home run or little, their rings and all that. You're not seeing the game where he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. You're not seeing where he made an error in the bottom of the fifth inning that cost them the game. You're not seeing all that. So don't compare somebody else's. You compare your life and your son to somebody else's highlight reel. Okay. When players are older, and it should be the players posting it, not the parents anyway, post full at bats. Like you can post highlights, but also post full at bats. Let a coach see how, what, you struck out, but it was an 8-pitch at bat and you were down 0-2 and you fought back and you know what I mean? And like, okay, let them see that. That's for players that are trying to get recruited. So I would say it kind of changes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with parents posting all their highlights. I just think the parents seeing those highlights need to realize, though, that's the highlight reel. That's not the real life reel.
I had this mantra for a while when I first started coaching back in the club ball scene at 14U. One of the things I tried to get my parents and players to understand was to stop comparing and to start
Oh
competing.
yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that I think that my players have done, because when they go into the high school ranks, some of those kids sat
Mm-hmm.
because they were at big high schools and they got lucky to be honest with you, got lucky to make the team. And
Mm-hmm.
they did, and they sat there, and instead of comparing against those kids, all they did was go out and compete. They got recognition for that, but obviously playing time is what they wanted. They just weren't better than everybody else on the team. And so I don't think we do enough of that. That's why it's kind of questions there is I feel like that's all we do with highlights. We're just comparing ourselves to the next 12U kid, and we're not seeing some of these things that you talked about. The so my college coach used to ask me all the time, when we go and recruit, I want you to watch the kids with the bad at bats. I want you to watch the
Mm-hmm.
kids that make the
Mm-hmm.
errors. I want you to watch the kids who have 8-pitch at bats, like you said, the QABs, the quabs, or whatever you like to call them. And the reason that she wanted me to do that, I coach college softball, and the reason that she wanted me to do that was she wanted to me see how the culture was. Did she talk to her teammates on what she felt she saw? Did she talk about, the bat at bat? Were they having those conversations? And then did she adjust from at bat to at bat? Because in college we don't coach like we do in high school baseball or even club
Yeah.
ball, because you're supposed to know everything. You're supposed to
Yeah.
do your cuts and relays once. You're supposed to get it. You have that, and you're supposed to learn to adjust, which I also think is a problem in our game, because all we do is just teach these kids from inside of a cage. We don't play enough outside to make adjustments because you got laughed at. And I'm not saying bullying's okay. I'm not remotely suggesting that. However, I've been laughed at because I took a swing and fell. You know what I mean? And it was funny,
Yeah.
whatever. But I carried that big red bat with me everywhere I went when I was a kid. They called me Bam Bam for a reason. And it wasn't the orange hair. But to me, it was simply, uh, I had to learn to adjust. My coach didn't tell me how to hit. He said, if you have a runner on second base with 2 strikes and you hit the ball right field, hit it backside. I'm a right-handed hitter. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept pulling the baseball, couldn't get him over. He sat me. He said, if you cannot do your job, I don't need you in the game. So he sat me. What's the one thing you could take away from a player, right? And I don't see that enough anymore. I don't see playing the team game anymore. I don't see certain things like that. I just feel like baseball is as talented as we are. It's kind of going this way with having good baseball conversation with young people. I don't know how you feel about that part, but it's
Yeah.
tough to have conversation with young people.
No, it is. And you like the last, see here, look at the last thing that you just talked about. Like you getting benched because you couldn't hit behind the runner to move him over when you had 2 strikes. And so I did a post. I don't know. I forgot what it was, but I was basically saying like, this kid's batting 350, but somebody else is playing over him. And parents went wild. How can that be? I don't know what I'm talking about and everything. And I'm like, at the high school level, coaches, you might think it's favoritism in politics. Coaches are going to play the guys that they can trust, that they know that that can execute. So you might have a kid that's hitting 350 versus a kid that's batting 290. But if the coach knows that, if I need somebody that can get a bunt down, if I know somebody, somebody that can hit behind the runner, somebody that's gonna, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna go with the guy that I can trust. And there's also a lot of other factors too. You could have a kid hitting 350 that's all singles, versus a kid hitting 280 that has walked more than the other kid, more extra base hits. So his on base percentage and OPS are similar or higher. There's just so many things that go into it, but parents just tend to look at just one stat. And again, maybe it's just because they don't know. But yeah, I think it's there's not enough. There's too much. I don't know, too much coddling, too much babying people, and I'm not talking about being, just I'm not a fan of coaches that scream and yell. I did a post on that not too long ago. I think if you're screaming and yelling at your players in the middle of the game, it's because you don't know how to coach them. You can't teach them. But yeah, there's a lot going on out there, man.
I actually like what you just said there because I struggle with that the most because I have what I think is a big IQ for the game. And
Mm.
when I see stuff, I like to talk to my players like right then. I don't yell like, you're terrible or anything goofy like
Oh
that.
yeah,
I might have to yell across the field, hey, what would you do next time? Just trying to kind of get them to think
yeah,
about maybe what they did. And so I try to coach them up through the progress. Like it's especially at these younger levels because we don't have them enough. So I feel like in-game coaching is more of like the scrimmage style setting where I can coach them up there because they forget as soon as they get in the dugout. And so
yeah.
I don't yell at them for the mistakes. I yell at them to try to make them prepared for the next time it's going to happen because it's going to happen again. And then when it happens, they're like, man, coach, thanks for talking to me. So I get stuck in that middle part of saying it's good or bad. Um, and I do like what you said there because sometimes I find myself like, what's going on? What are you doing? And it's like, I should be coaching that at practice. And I made a deal with my coaches. I said, if we're going to be doing these things at practice now, we cannot be doing those during the game. So no yelling at your kid. No, because I have parent coaches because, nobody's more invested than a parent coach on the
Right.
team. And I go, you can't yell at your kid and you can't yell at his kid because you guys are buddies and neighbors or whatnot. I go, if we're going to do it, we're going to let them fail. We're going to take notes and we'll talk to them after the game and then we'll talk to them at practice. Do you remember this? Let's replay the message. And, first time out, it was good for the first 3 innings and then something hit the fan and it was like, oh, here we go again because it's the emotions come out. And I was like, guys, this is what we agreed to. So we're working on it. Right. But I do think that's a big thing there is controlling some of those emotions in a game because we still need to make it fun. And Bobby, before we go, I got a couple new things I want to introduce to you. One, I want you back because I want to talk about some of the comments that you had with Perfect Game, some of the conversation that you had with the Banditos director, which I think was awesome of him to say, call you out. If you don't know, make sure you go check this out because it was something he just posted. And then you going down there and having that conversation with him. I'm not exactly sure how it ended or started. It was good. I liked it for my imagination. So we have
There's a lot. There's a lot off too, but it was to me. It was productive. You know what I mean? Like we talked face to face, and I don't want to do. Long story short, with him, a lot of people don't like his methodologies and things like that. Which you don't have to agree with everything, but I mean, he's produced a ton of college baseball players, MLB draft picks, and MLB players. So you know,
I,
love him.
I
Like I said, love him or hate him. You know.
yeah, I like that you said you don't have to like the guy because I mean at the end of the day he wins, right? He's got 2,000 something wins. You said
Yeah.
in the perfect game setting, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and I could agree. Not everybody likes the methods, but what drew me to Youth Baseball Midwest was finding solutions. I
Mhm.
thought that it was always a big deal for us is trying to have conversations to find solutions, not to create more problems. And so I just thought that was hats off to you for doing that and taking the time out of your day. Lightning round. All right. So this is super quick answers. I'm going to give you a couple options. I want to do this because I just want to create a little bit of fun in the show. So lightning round begins now. So travel ball or rec ball, which one would you prefer?
Travel ball.
Radar guns or strike percentage?
Strike percentage.
Private lessons or backyard games?
Both.
Ah, you got to pick one or the other.
Well,
I know
okay,
where this
backyard
is going.
games.
I know where
Backyard
that's
games.
going because you have to have
Yeah,
both in today's game for sure.
blitz ball and and a blitz ball bat and get out there and have fun.
I love that. We have professional wiffle ball here, and
Mhm.
it's guys that throw 100 with a wiffle ball bat at whatever that 40 something feet is. It's intense. Practice or games?
Games.
Talent or toughness?
Toughness.
Best baseball lesson you've learned?
Man, best base. Oh, this is the lightning round. You're going to fail 70% of the time.
That's a good one. Most overrated thing in youth baseball?
Rings.
Most underrated in youth baseball?
True development.
Yep. One thing every parent needs to hear.
Everybody's path is different.
One thing every athlete needs to hear.
Everybody's path is different.
That's what I thought. I thought you was going to probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, all right, this isn't the lightning round, so you can answer how you wish. So, if baseball disappeared tomorrow and all that you had left were the lessons that were taught to you by baseball, that's hence the lightning round question. What lessons are you most grateful for that baseball's given you?
Um, well, I'm gonna say it for the third time. Everybody's path is different. You're rarely as good as you think or as bad as you think. It's baseball is a game. Baseball and life are games of highs and lows, and it's easy to think that you're all that sometimes, and when you're probably not, and it's easy to think that you suck when you don't. Um, and I think with anything, like, you have to focus on the things. I talk to my son because you see this a lot in baseball. Focus on the things that you can control, which is your attitude, your effort, your response to certain situations, because you can't control whether the umpire, calls a pitch a ball or a strike. You can't control. You can barrel a ball and it goes straight to somebody, and you get hit a ball off the hand, off the hands, and you get a double. So, like, you just can't control those things. So just focus on what you can control. I think those are probably some of the biggest lessons. And again, everybody's going to fail. Like, you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed, and that's in anything. But it's really only failure if you don't learn from it. My son and I talk a lot about that. Like, it's only failure if you don't learn from it, then that's really what makes it a failure. But those are just opportunities to get better and improve. And it's the same thing in life. I know the guy that I was talking to a few years back, that very, very family, very successful. They own multiple businesses. I mean, high profile business. He has like 20 cars in his driveway. And I asked him, I said, what's one thing you'd want to say to somebody that's just starting out as an entrepreneur? And he said, don't look at my 20 cars in the driveway. Look at the 20 businesses that I started and failed, before I ever had success. And so, I think that applies to baseball and life.
I'm actually going through that right now, going through rebranding opportunities, and from things that I've experienced. And I just imagine if I would have just quit, it's just not in my nature. And I feel like being even keel is kind of the answer that I would like to have, but I'm such a high emotional guy that I don't know that I could answer that. Baseball has given me this even keel, the one lesson I've learned. I think the biggest lesson for me is just being happy. I found happiness in baseball, and what
Yeah.
made me happy in baseball is the lesson that I took and to try to help me through other things, and find happiness instead of all this sadness, or because that to me creates destruction. And all right, man, you have the stage, but 30-second answer. What would you tell a player today? You have 30 seconds. The world is watching. We only have about 1,000 viewers, so about 1,000, but you got 30 seconds
Wait,
to,
what would I say to a player today?
yep, you got 30 seconds. What's
Okay.
one piece of advice?
If your dream is to play baseball in college, you're going to have to put in the work every day. It's not going to happen by accident. Nobody owes you anything. And, you're going to have to put in the work every day. And that's one thing that I think separates it. That's the greatest indicator of how much do you really want it. Like, how much are you willing to do? And you're gonna have to sacrifice and put in the work. And if you want to play, even though less than 10% do, there's opportunities. It may not be at Ole Miss, it may not be at Vanderbilt, it may be at a JUCO in the middle of Kansas, but that's it. If you want it, you got to put in the work.
Johnson County's in Kansas. They got a pretty nice junior
yeah,
college over there. Bobby, I appreciate
sure.
you joining us today, man. If you want to check out Bobby, you need to go to Chasing Baseball Dreams on his Instagram. That's where he does most of his work. It is fantastic work, in my opinion. He speaks a lot of truth to it. I'm sure there's some longer skits on there, but that's what made me kind of fall in love with that. And some of the biggest takeaways I took from today's conversations that baseball always has been about more than batting averages, which is one of the stats that I don't like, velocities, scholarships, or even kind of wins and losses. It's about developing these young people, teaching resilience, building the character, and helping athletes kind of learn how to handle adversity both on and off the field. And, for parents that are listening, remember that your player's journey is exactly that. It's theirs. You need to support them, encourage them. We've already talked about that on today's show, and help them keep their own love for the game and not yours. That's been, I think, the biggest thing that my parents did for me was let me love the game and not play through me. The game is hard, right? But the lessons that it teaches us can last a lifetime. He just talked about it. That's why one of the last questions that I asked him was, what's one of those lessons? And to be even keel is what we, kind of need. So if you enjoyed today's episode, you need to make sure that you subscribe. You're already watching it, so make sure you up at the top right corner, you hit the little dinger thing, and you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Then you could check us out on our Instagrams and socials. You'll see Bobby's here. We'll list it in the captions, not graphics, descriptions. I need to do better at social media. Social media is not my thing. But go at him because you've only been doing this since I think about 2024, and his content's just grown. The insight's amazing.
No, I've only been doing this for 6 months.
Oh,
the content.
You got it going on. So all I need to say is just, folks, you guys got to keep showing up and keep putting in that work, keep chasing your dreams. Obviously, you saw it there, chase the baseball dreams. On and off the field, in life, and everything in between. Guys, I'm Coach Mitch. You can find me at the Hitting Zone, which is located at 1496 Hoff Industrial. You can obviously find me on my socials. And then make sure you tag the shorts in the Hitting Zone podcast so you can see this kind of stuff. And so until next time, I need you guys to trust your faith, trust your family, and keep swinging for more.